Happy Memorial Day, everybody. It's your boy, Dead on Dave. Welcome to In the Crease with Tommy C. We have got the Rangers and the Lightning in an epic battle for Game 5 where the Lightning came out on top. We're also going to talk Hawks, Ducks preview for their pivotal Game 5. And we have a very, very special guest in my crease today. All that and more on In the Crease with Tommy C. But it's really Davey V. Let's go. That's right, that's right. There I am. It is your boy, Dead on David. In my crease is this friggin' guy. Look at that. That is Henrik Lundqvist in some friggin' guy's hair. Who this guy is, I have no idea. And I don't really care because he's not important. What is important is the guy who created it, Joe Barajas, otherwise known as Joe the Barber. He makes these unique styles. And look at this shit. This is crazy. Why wouldn't he be my guest in the crease sideman today? Look at that. You got to have King Henrik in there, right? Yeah. So we got all kinds of stuff crack-a-lacking. Man, the Rangers, not doing Tommy any favors while he's on his honeymoon. But, you know, it was not for a lack of trying. Let's be completely honest. Hell of a Game 5. A different type of Game 5. Steve Stamkos keeps his really hot streak going as of late, setting up, not only scoring himself, but also setting up Filipula's go-ahead goal. And the Lightning are now just one more game away from the Stanley Cup Finals. Striking first seems to be the key for Tampa, as they are now 8-0 in these playoffs when they score the opening goal. So, I mean, really, can't let them score first. Crazy game. We're going to break down that, so let's start there. Look, I'm just going to touch on the Rangers because, honestly, I don't have a lot to say about them. I mean, they played fine. In this game. Great, even at time. But Tampa really is the story here coming out of Game 5. You know, as far as this game goes, the one thing that cannot be ignored or forgotten as a Ranger fan is just how well the Rangers played. You know, they played a great game even though they lost. Neither team really outplayed the other, at least offensively. It was more of a story of a great goalie in Lundqvist versus a stone friggin' wall in Bishop, who really needed this game. I mean, just for confidence sake. Because Lundqvist, even in the games, and Tommy C was right about this, he talked about it in his little update, and he was right. That Lundqvist, even in the 12 goals that he gave up in 2 games, it's not that he was looking overly bad. The defense was just leaving him on an island most of the time. So Lundqvist hasn't played horribly piss poor at times. He played really well in Game 5, but the problem was Bishop, who has been inconsistent through most of, not just the year, but this playoffs in particular, really needed this game to just get back in there. So here's where I'm going to go with the Rangers. I feel that they have to be worried. Just like I said, the Rangers didn't play a bad game. In fact, really, in all 3 of their losses, they didn't play terribly, terribly bad. In this one in particular, because they definitely, when you play as well as the Rangers did in this game, you expect to win those games. But coming out on the other end of it, the problem really does have to start becoming a concern just because of how the Lightning were able to change up their game. You know, I feel the Rangers have to be worrying in Game 6 because of the statement that the Lightning made on defense in Game 5. They showed a complete different parameter to the game with the ability to win and do so than being more than just the NHL's number one scoring team. Did you even realize that Tampa was the NHL's number one scoring team? Because they are. But it didn't matter. They can rely on more than just that to win games, and that's a scary thought. These are the type of games that people later on point to and say, this is why they're champions. And that's the scariest part of this game. Look, it's very possible that the Rangers win the next two games. I'm not so sure that that's the case, because while we haven't been giving all due respect maybe to Tampa, they're showing a really unique ability to adapt, and not just in this game and implement a different game plan, because they won this game more on defense than they did on offense. Let's be completely frank about that. It's just not in this game that they're showing that ability. And I'm going to point to Coach John Cooper here and something that he did 2 weeks ago, because really to talk about this win in Game 5, you have to talk about something that happened over 2 weeks ago. And that's when John Cooper made the decision to move Stamkos to right wing instead of center. Instead, he stuck in Filipula, yes, with Alex Killorn on the left. And that seems to have really worked. It's reshaped how the offense is set up now. It might be the one move that's pointed to as one of those under-the-radar type of moves that seemingly always happen that tend to dictate a championship season. You have to be able to, as a coach at this level, you've got to be able to go in and make those type of crazy changes and not be afraid of the outcome. You know, moving your star center to the right or to the left is a hell of a gamble, because you're messing with the number one scoring offense in the regular season. But knowing your players, and especially Stamkos, who has a history of going ice cold in the playoffs, knowing your players well enough to be willing to make those changes is just shows amazing foresight. Really, really smart. And it's the type of move that you see out of Stanley Cup winning head coaches. All right, as much as I love this Lundqvist photo, it's actually starting to give me the creeps. There we go. That's much better. Lundqvist head photo is creeping me out. So it's back to what I was saying, though. It becomes more of a situation that your coach, when a coach makes a move like this and it pays off in spades, which it has, it gives the team a hell of a confidence boost going forward, because you know that your coach has his finger on the pulse of you as a player and the team in the locker room. And when a coach understands his players, especially when it's a team that is this offensively talented, which we don't talk about nearly enough, by the way, as Tampa is, good things are going to happen. Because right now, in the playoffs, it's just no longer the triplets, the law offices of Johnson, Palat, and Kucherov. No, now this new alignment has been the major spark needed to wake up arguably one of the most talented players on the ice on any given night, and certainly the best player in this series, Steve Stamkos, who's now routinely found more free ice to skate on. And oh, by the way, 6 goals in 7 games. That's scary. That's scary, because that means your superstar, your X factor, that guy who could take over a game, is gaining more and more confidence. 6 goals in 7 games is nothing to sneeze at. And it really just goes to show that it's players buying into a system and a team playing together even when changes are going on. And I love the fact that they were able to kind of realize how they got beat up in the previous game, that their offensive mindset was not working in Game 4. They got beat up pretty badly. So what did they do? They changed it up and focused more on defense. And the more important thing is their players actually were able to execute the game plan. So there it is. I think it's mystery solved for Tampa Bay. And I think the bottom line is it's damn hard to stop 2 top-end scoring lines in the playoffs. And that's exactly what the Lightning have right now. Because they do. They got 2 top scoring lines, and it's scary. They're elite. They're not just good. They are elite scoring lines. What are you going to do? So if you're in New York, the question really becomes, how do you recover, losing this game in Madison Square Garden, which I think does really matter here, is a tough one to take on the chin. You do not want to lose Game 5. I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. I felt both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals would be decided in the Game 5s. Whoever won Game 5 in each of these series, I believe, will end up winning the series. And even though I have New York going to the finals, if you put a gun to my head right now, I'm going to tell you I'm taking Tampa Bay because they seem more able to adjust on the fly and play complete style of hockey games from one game to another. The Rangers, if they're not firing offensively, they seem to be lost, and they don't seem to be able to give Lundqvist the protection that he needs throughout an entire game. Sorry if you noticed a slight distraction. Getting back to what I was saying, the most important thing that the Rangers need to keep in mind is, and kind of use as a comfort, is going forward, this is not the first time this season, certainly not last season, that they've been on the brink. They came back from a much more dire situation, down 3-1 to the Capitals, and they came back and rallied. They also came back from a 3-1 deficit last year against Pittsburgh. This is a team that is tried and tested, and they go down swinging. So it's not a big deal that they have to go to Tampa Bay, that's not going to be a deciding factor. I don't think home ice is going to be the difference maker for this game. What needs to happen is the Rangers have to come back and not be horrible, and I do mean horrible, on their power play, because they were. That was the biggest problem that I take away from this game, from Game 5, is the one aspect of the game that you want to be most focused on if you're Alain Vigneault is the fact that your power play was absolutely atrocious. I mean, absolutely atrocious, and it did nothing. It killed the flow of the entire game. And after that first goal went in, it seemed like all the wind was taken out of the sails from an offensive standpoint. So, but it shouldn't be. That's the one thing about the Rangers, is they're able to take the game and be good with it as it was just that game. They lost the game. They move on. I don't think losing Game 5 is going to be a mental hindrance for Game 6. So I think really that's going to be it as far as the Eastern Conference Finals goes. Going forward, the Rangers just have to play their style of game and not get thrown off the fact that they're playing against a much better Tampa Bay team than we thought. So my prediction is I have a feeling this game might be over in Game 6. If I'm seriously thinking about putting money, I wouldn't bet on Game 6, to be completely honest. But if I absolutely had to, I think I'm going to put my money on Tampa. But that being said, I still like this Ranger team very much, and I don't think they're out of it by any stretch. So it really does come down to it of just can the Rangers refocus and get back into it and play Ranger-style hockey. And I think it's going to take another impact performance by Nash. Nash has got to get involved here. He's got to show that Tampa's not the only team that has a superstar that can take over a game. And as long as they're able to do that, the Rangers should be fine. So we'll see. Will they give Tommy C some love while he's on that volcano?
What went wrong for the Rangers tonight?
We'll find
Nothing.
out.
They played great.
Really
they had tons of chances early. They didn't kill penalties very well.
Sorry if you heard a little Barry Melrose in the background there. Let's switch gears to the Blackhawks, shall we? We've got Game 5, pivotal game tonight in the pond. It's in Anaheim. The Hawks need to win this game. Plain and simple. I've said many times that I think that the winner of Game 5 is going to win this series, just like I say in the other one. The Ducks have made their point. They're good. They're a good, if not a great team. They can skate with anybody, and they're physical enough to take Chicago Stars out of the game. Yet, the Blackhawks remain. The Ducks have not lost in regulation in the entire playoffs this year. Yet, the Blackhawks remain. The Ducks have gotten a transformational performance out of their goalie, Mr. Anderson. Yet, the Hawks remain. That's the scariest thing about these Hawks. They're resilient. They're crafty. They know how to win tight games. And most importantly, they know how to not let losses dictate a series. You know, they've played very well against a team that has just really beaten the holy hell out of them in 4 games. I mean, physically. At least 3 games and 40 seconds of a fourth. Because let's face it, if the Hawks are able to play the way they did in Game 4 for the rest of the series, they are going to win rather easily. And here's why. Look, that 40 seconds where Anaheim scored 3 goals, that's a very fluky thing. You cannot count on something like that happening frequently. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And it won't. It's not going to happen again. But it's pretty simple when you look at it. What does Anaheim need to do to win this game? They need to continue to do the things that they've been able to do throughout. They've been able to shut down the Blackhawks' power play, really by just being overly physical and knocking them off the puck. That's what they're going to have to keep doing. Keep grinding on Jonathan Toews. Also, continue to feed your stars. You feed those stars, and they are doing good things. Getzlaf and Perry have shown they are every bit as talented as Kane and Toews, and that is a hell of a statement. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to Anderson. If Anderson continues to play the way he has in the first 4 games, then they have a chance to win every game, not just in this series, but for the rest of the playoffs. He's been that good, and the rest of this Ducks team is good enough, and there's the talent there on all 4 lines, or at least I'd say the top 3 are really, really solid. The 4th has played good in this series, but there's been questions about their depth in the past. But Anderson has played well enough to give the Stars, those scoring lines, the opportunity to really make a difference in the game, where a 1 or 2 goal difference is more than enough to stand up, because Anderson's been that good. The softies haven't been a problem. It's been the elite passing of the Hawks that seems to have given him the most issue at times. But even then, he's had the sheer skill to recover and make some breathtaking saves. So the question is, are we going to see more of that, or are the Hawks going to be able to just employ their game plan and the precision that they need to offensively take over a game? Because that's what the Hawks do when they are winning, and winning at a super, super superior rate, is they're able to outplay people. They're outskill people, outwork people, out-hustle people. They haven't been able to do those last 2 things against Anaheim, because you can't work if you're on your back or against the boards. And that's where the Hawks have spent most of this series. So, and you can't out-hustle somebody when you're on the friggin' floor either. So I'm looking for a win from the Hawks, but they're going to need to be really tough to do it. They're going to have to maybe get in a couple scraps here, maybe get a little dirty with Anaheim, punch them in the mouth a little bit, show them that they're not going to be intimidated, and maybe try to free up Toews so he can get the guys around him the puck and be that playmaker that Jonathan Toews needs to be for this really talented scoring tandem of not just Kane anymore, Saad and even Hjalmarsson, who has shown the ability to bury the puck when he gets the opportunity. But when you got Hossa, who still has one of the nicest and hardest slap shots that you're going to see out of anybody in hockey, there's enough there that if Toews is able to get those guys around him into it, the Hawks shouldn't have a problem. That's not disrespecting the Ducks, because the Ducks have played unbelievably well. I just don't know if you can rely on Anderson to be as consistent as he's been. This is kind of a fluke thing to see him this good. He's shown times in the past where he could be really good, but they're not sustained usually. This is a sustained stretch where he's played well this entire playoffs. This is the first time in the playoffs he's had to do so against an elite talent, but we'll see what happens. It should be quite interesting how Game 5 plays out. Oh, finally, I want to close up on something that happened between Game 3. It happened in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals back on Thursday night, which kind of went untalked about very much. Gary Bettman had a press conference, and at the press conference, he talked about a few things. One being that he expects the 2015-2016 cap to jump by about 5% and settle around $71 million. This is good news for a lot of teams that really, really need some cap relief. Like my Blackhawks, for instance. So that'll be good. But that's the side story. The bigger story is that Bettman also faced several questions about concussions. And this is really because 3 months ago, we of course, the death of Steve Montador, who was subsequently found to have CTE, that brain disease that can only be discovered after someone's death at the moment. And there's a lot that has come because of it. So he faced a lot of questions, and he tried to handle it with as much, grace, I guess, as possible, especially while this 70-man lawsuit of former NHL players is going on. He had to be really careful, but these are some of the things that he had to say. From a medical and scientific standpoint, there is no evidence that one leads to the other when it comes to concussions and CTE. So that's a pretty strong statement for Bettman to make at this juncture, in the middle of this lawsuit and all of the focus on concussions. I don't know if that's the right statement to make, because I don't know if it's 100% true. And even if it is, even if it's 95% true, here's why you can't make that statement. Because guys, vultures like Chris Nowinski, who, unbelievably, not shockingly, jumps right in, because he's the co-founder of the Boston-based Sports Legacy Institute, which is really leading all the research on traumatic brain injuries. He jumped right in it and responds to Bettman. And really, we have a tale of two guys who are making statements that are not 100% substantiated. Bettman makes a statement, there's no evidence that concussions leads to CTE, which I think is kind of I don't know. I don't know. I think it's kind of obvious. If you take a lot of brain injuries, your brain's going to turn to mush, which is basically what CTE is. Nowinski responds on Twitter, and he's so smug, and this is why nobody really gets behind this guy and why they think he's a crackpot, because he's such an elitist friggin' douchebag, and he says things so smugly. So this is what he responded on Twitter. If necessarily means always, fine. If not, then no evidence is untrue. We have some pretty good evidence. Now, that's probably true. There is good evidence to suggest to the contrary of what Bettman is saying. However, when you say it like a smug dickhead, kind of gets harder to get people into your corner. And Nowinski, who goes on these crusades to outlaw stupid shit like headers in soccer, instead of going after the most obvious cases. I mean, you want to talk about CTE and brain damage and concussions, why don't you go against the major stuff that's out there that really does matter, like, I don't know, boxing and MMA, which he does touch on, but he doesn't get into nearly as much as he does in stuff like youth soccer and the NFL, and most importantly, wrestling. Because why? Because he wanted to be a wrestler, and his dream was cut short due to, you guessed it, concussion. So we have another case of a jilted lover with an axe to grind, and unfortunately, this guy is highly, highly, highly educated, and he probably has a good backing of some financial people up in Boston. And look, that's not to say that what they're doing at the Boston Institute up there that he helped co-found is not great work. It is great work. It's integral. We need more information. There's no question. We need more info. Plain and simple. We need to know as much about concussions and as much about head injuries and as much about CTE as humanly possible. But for the moment, what we know is not nearly enough to substantiate all the demands that are being asked upon by guys like Nowinski. So, just one fat man's opinion. That's about all I've got. So, let's get ready to crack the lack out of here, right? And so tonight, in the National Hockey Dockey League, we got Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. My Blackhawks take on the mighty Punks. They're playing in Anaheim. Will the Blackhawks be able to get their shit together? It's at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, I believe? 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I think that's the same time all games have been happening in the playoffs. So is it going to be enough? Is Anderson going to be able to continue to be that beast that he's been? Will Kane really get going? Will Kane stop being leaned upon? I have no idea. I don't have those answers. But what I do know is this is awesome. This is incredible. Guys like this is why I love hockey. Guys who don't care that they look like a retard walking down the street. Guys that love people like Lundqvist this much that they'll go to dudes like Joe the Barber and get these amazing works of art. Because that's what it is, people. This is a work of friggin' art. Of Michelangelo-esque quality. That's hair. That's friggin' hair. And it's a face. It's a creepy face. But if I know this, there's one thing I know. That if this guy walked in to my house, I would tell him, get out of my crease! Good luck, Mr. Anderson.